Welcome back to that part. I'm
Welcome
Verta.
back. And I'm Na. And this season has been a bit different for us. Instead of starting with a topic, we started with Black women in our lives. And a really simple question, which was if you had a podcast and you could talk about anything, what would you talk about? And every answer has taken us somewhere a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I think that's such a big question. And so when we ask it, it's been really cool to think about where they're going to go. And one of the things that we try not to do is prep too much for the conversation in advance. So we know what they're going to talk about and the things that they're going to talk um,
Two.
to, but we don't know what either of us are going to say. So we don't always know where we're going, which means that we're listening and reacting in real time. Um,
I mean,
and
I'm going to share listen and react in real time because I just took your part.
We generally do work from a script, but hey, we're figuring it out as we go. So today is just not Inverta, and we there were so many things that came up through the course of the last three conversations that we've talked about it, and we wanted just to do this kind of like in between that part where we talk about what has come up for us since that has transpired, questions that are coming on, and just different things, and just kind of like what's going on for us even right now in life.
And so, I mean, as we talk about that, can we recap a little bit of what the last three episodes have been about? And we started with Jihan,
Mhm.
and yeah,
There, and it was about realigning with yourself after motherhood. And then we moved into a conversation about grief and kind of what comes after grief with Darnice. And then our last episode was with Marquita and Marquita Daniels, Darnice Daniels, not related. And it was
I
about
never thought about that till you just said that.
I had always thinking about it. It's
What
because,
do you
Nana and I
think?
have specific roles. She's pre-production, I'm post-production. So when I'm like making all the graphics and stuff, I'm like, huh, I wonder if they're gonna think that they're related.
Right.
And Marquita's topic was about like redefining love and coming like back to yourself in your 50s. And so we have probably at this point about 20 women that we're talking about, and we've kind of grouped them. And so that's what we felt like that group kind of went together and then it just almost automatically they just like wove into each other.
They
And
did.
so I'm going to start off with a question for you now.
Wait, but before you
Oh, she
say
said
that,
no. Okay. She's not going to answer my questions.
yeah, I'm going
Okay.
to answer all your questions, maybe. We'll see. Before
Hmm.
we say that, I just want to say how I'm repping Black Stars.
Yes, go
Can we
Ghana,
just
go
say that? Go
Ghana, go
Ghana, go
Ghana.
Ghana.
Yes. And how
Always repping the Black
I'm
Star.
repping Pixie Girls in the in between.
You
So
look
mine's like,
adorable.
ooh, I tied my scarf really weird last night. So here we are.
No,
But yeah.
it's super cute. Super cute. But with the three topics, as we talked about them with each other and with other people. And we invite and continue to invite all of you to share with us your thoughts, your emotions, like what comes up for you, what you want to hear more about. And I just wanted to say that part before
Okay.
we get into the questions. So, all right, you go. You have a
Okay,
question
well,
for
I'm
me.
just going to start off with, is there anything super, super top of mind that stayed with you from any of those three conversations that you're just like, I keep thinking about this over and over and over again?
I mean, I'll say the grief. Episode with Darnice
Mhm.
where there were a few things. There was a point where you mentioned how grief wasn't just about losing a person, and it was about whatever the loss is, the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship or a relationship. You might not have said that, but that did come away for me.
Mhm.
And also just how emotional I was in that episode. Like I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't not expecting it. I just thought, as usual, let me roll because I usually roll and I don't wear my emotions necessarily on a sleeve.
Yeah.
But I was really emotional in that entire episode, and that had some to do with, as I said in the beginning of that episode, I wasn't really ready to talk about grief, which for me had to do with how many people I had lost
Yep.
in these last 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, and then some of it had to do with Darnice just being geniusly Darnice
Yeah.
and
It was great.
bringing up some things and making me think about what was resonating and what I did want to maybe embrace, because she
Mhm.
talks so much about her mom and embracing that grief,
Yeah.
and how that turned her,
Mhm.
into the next version of herself and
Yeah.
the next version of herself. So that's what
Yeah.
stayed with me.
And I think to talk about that specifically, one, I thank you for sharing what you shared because you are someone who does not wear all of those emotions on your sleeve, but I do know that that process, I kind of just, I sat with you through it. Even if we don't talk about things, it's just like being there and present. And one thing that both of you talked about, and I think you named how it was almost like a full year. You gave that example of like, I don't know, like something that had happened at school and people were like,
Yeah,
"What, you remember?"
yeah,
And so then the whole thing, it was one, the mental imagery as well as the emotional of sitting with it for a year, right? This walk, almost like walking with you through this year and this journey of grief. And that really stood out for me a lot because I think we don't always acknowledge the period of time that it takes to, I think, have the grief just become a part of you. I don't think that it
yeah,
ever goes away. You know what I mean? But it's like it took that long for your body to kind of just like reset almost
yeah,
and adjust to the new normal of what it means. Because when we lose people in our lives, especially, but when we lose anything in our lives, the memory of it remains, and that's
right.
the beauty of it. And this kind of like walking journey of a year of just like letting it kind of happen. So that really did stand out for me. And the other thing that you're bringing up that she talked about was seeing grief as an invitation. Um, I had not considered it that way
Exactly.
before.
Exactly. Right. I
And
was like,
yeah.
I don't want to invite this, but yeah, the way that yes.
Yeah, the way that she talked
Mhm.
about that. And it made me think about all of the invitations that we might potentially have in life. And
Mm.
so um I had a conversation with a colleague who's becoming a friend, and he talked a little bit about how if we don't seize opportunities, first you have to acknowledge that any moment could possibly be an opportunity, whether it's a downtime, a bad thing that's happening, a great thing that's happening, right? And if you are not open to the idea that that it is a
Right,
possibility or an invitation, that you could completely miss that, right? Like that
right.
you just like, and and you might not even realize you missed it, but like the things that we are open to. And so in that, whether it's grieving the loss of a job, and I feel like it's almost been a full year since I was, kind of laid off from the role that I was in. And so I do feel like it's almost like this year, this journey, and like where I am now feels so
Yeah,
different, the level of clarity. And in the moment, in the midst of it, and the trying to figure everything out, it's hard to see that as a invitation. I was like, what,
exactly.
an invitation to
Yeah.
fall apart? Invitation to be in the fetal position? An invitation to crash the fuck out? Like, what invitation for what? And so, yes, it's an invitation for those things, but it's also this invitation to see for me. So, when I think about this year, because that was like a grief, it was a loss, there were people that I lost. And we've talked about that in many episodes, not even just the ones, these last three. But I, I think I've had an opportunity to slow down. And when I say that, I mean on all
Yeah.
fronts, right? Like to
No, for
just
sure.
slow life down a little
Yeah.
bit.
Slow your
Um,
brain down.
slow all of it. Nervous
Yeah.
system's been a little bit more regulated, like all of that. And that whatever's happening, my reaction is really what the matter is, right? Like it's
Mhm.
not anything of what's happening because I'm not that differently situated than I was before. I'm still, hey, still underemployed, still looking for, we're still growing 45 lemons. However, my mental approach to it and like seizing opportunities and seeing things as like I can lean into that. So yeah. That's what I'll say about that.
The last piece for me on grief is it also made me appreciate, and yes, I am always repping Ghana because I will always rep Ghana. And but it does make me appreciate some of our grieving process in Ghana. In the US,
Mm.
when somebody passes away, you almost want to get it over with. You just want
Yeah.
to move on. You
Mhm.
want the funeral's very quick.
Yes.
According to Ghana standards, they're extremely quick. Um, people are there with you for weeks,
Mhm.
days, weeks, but then they go.
Mhm.
And when they're gone, that's when you really crash
Mhm. Do you
because
mean here in the US or you
here
mean
in the
abroad?
US.
Yeah. Mhm.
No, here in the US. And
Mhm.
and for all those times when somebody's lost someone and I might send something immediately, but
Mhm.
quite often I will wait a little bit
Yeah.
because you're inundated with
Yes.
all the bring you food, let's
Mhm.
do all these things that we are all doing in community to make sure each other's okay.
Yeah.
And that happens in Ghana. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
immediately you're receiving lots of people caring for you, and there are a lot of things happening in that process. But there's also this piece where, what we do in Ghana,
Mhm.
and no Ghanaians come for me because I'm just going to tell you what
Say what
we
what
do,
not and her people do in Ghana.
my people do in Ghana. But I think it's pretty traditional. As you know, you have family meetings where you are making decisions about what the funeral is going to be like, what the person wanted, what the family wants, how we celebrate this person, how we grieve this person. And it can be and feel very tedious.
Yeah.
And it's definitely exhausting. And in the moment, your emotions are there. And also you are buffeted by
Mhm.
family and you
Yeah.
are like them or not. You are buffeted by all of these people that are coming together at different points over a course of weeks, sometimes months. When it's months, it's a little too much, I
Yeah.
think. Every family is going to have their tradition around that. But there's this time to sit in the grief and to have other people sit with you in the grief for longer than a few days and
Yeah.
maybe longer than a few months.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the year,
Mhm.
um, you celebrate that year. You
Yeah.
celebrate the 1 year anniversary.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful thing
Mhm.
that I am sure if we were to go back in the history books and look at the ancestry of it all, I feel like everything that I've grown up with
Mhm.
from Ghana has to do with how we hold each other as family.
Yeah.
And so that tradition um, is special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two things. One, as someone from the outside, as I've witnessed, because you did lose a lot of people in a short amount of time. One of the things that was especially beautiful to me was the kind of putting together of the book, like the memorial
Oh
book
my gosh. Yes, I
that
didn't
you
even
all
talk
do.
about that. Yeah.
And to me, it's just something so beautiful about like collecting image, all these photographs of family members that are associated with this person, but like moments, and you have all of these reminders, and they're visual, right? And so that's
Yeah.
something that is just like really beautiful, and it's a very, at least from the outside, it's like a pretty elaborate process for each of them.
It
And
is.
yeah, do you want
And
to say
it
something
and
else?
it is again honoring their life, and celebrating their life. And so just to express what that is, there are tributes that are written
Yeah.
to that person. People say give people flowers, while they're alive. And hopefully we are all learning to do that. But this really gives you your flowers. And you hear from the people who are nearest and dearest to that person. And the book, like you said, both the imagery, even sitting with that in the
Mhm.
time period as we're putting the book together and you're seeing what people are writing
Yeah.
about your loved one. And then, you know, there were pictures that I had to go look for. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did have this. You know, I didn't even think I had pictures with this person. It was my cousin. And I, they were random pictures. They weren't anything that we posed
Nothing
for
extraordinary,
or
nothing
nothing
like, yeah, it was just
extraordinary. We're
literally
just
everyday life. It's one of the things
literally
I
everyday
miss the
life.
most about film photography. I
Mm.
know that we have them on our phone now, but there's a different way that it lives when it is a tangible photograph, and that's
Mhm.
what I think about the book. It's like this tangible
It is tangible.
album and
Yes.
collection of it, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and I hope that we can remember that kind of art of collecting these stories and that we all have something to contribute. And the other thing is not knowing how much impact a life may have had. So I'm on
Yes.
both sides of that. We need
Yes.
to give people their flowers while they're here. We just
Yes.
never know the impact that life has had. And I think one of the invitations that it's brought up for me about grief is we're not ever really lost, right? Like, meaning like that person is always going to be with you, right? Like, and I've not lost many really close family members yet, but my grandmother and on my mother's side. And I just think she's with me every day,
Yeah.
and she is, right?
And
So I
she
don't
is.
know. There's just like all
Yeah.
this beautiful stuff about that. So, um, yeah. Okay.
So that is what came up for me from that episode
Okay.
of And Darnese. So I will turn the question back to you. And what,
Okay.
yeah,
So when I did a little, like, I've been walking a lot lately. I love walking and the weather's nice or whatever. So when I was re-listening to the episodes, there was this part in the episode with Marquita about wait, let me find my notes. It was about breaking apart. She talked about a friend of hers who their marriage, they had to like literally break their whole marriage apart and then reconstruct it, is kind of what she
right,
said.
right.
And um hold on, what was it? I don't remember, but um it was something about resetting, breaking and resetting marriages. That's exactly what she says, like breaking and resetting marriages. And so this took me, and if I'm to just like be really candid, it made me think about the fact that including myself, so I'm divorced, and I don't I didn't know a lot about what marriage even was. In
Hmm.
the meaning, like, obviously intellectually,
No, I
like,
know
I'm not
what
like,
you
oh, I
mean.
don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah,
marriage is,
yeah.
you know what I mean, right? But
Yeah.
like what a marriage is, because it's just like I grew up, I have, my mother and my father had never been together. They never got married. And then I had a stepfather who was kind of like a little, not a very great person. And so that marriage was tumultuous. And so other than that, like in my home, I didn't have these models of it. But then, you think about marriage, what does it mean? The thing that we don't talk enough about is that we are always evolving as people. The core of who we are remains, but all of these episodes have talked about that a little bit, right?
Right.
Like that
Yes.
we're evolving. We're all of these beautifully unfinished beings.
Right.
And so to expect that someone when they are 24, if they happen to be married at that age, let's even go with 28 when I was married, but had known my husband at that time since I was about 22, right? So 22-year-old Verda
Yeah.
it's gotta be different than 28-year-old Verda. It's gotta be different than
Hopefully.
30. I mean,
Frankly, hopefully.
hopefully, but you just are. Like, even if it's
Yes.
that your body's different, your bones are different, like
Right.
you're just different, right? Like, I get the hopefully part. It's like whether you're actually really growing, but the expectation that a marriage is going to stay the same and that you would not have to honor the fact that you are going to become different people at these different stages. Even if you have children, you're different. There's,
Yeah.
being a parent. And that just really stayed with me. And it made me just reflect on, um, had I thought about those things or had I even been doing a lot of the work that I had done post, um,
Mhm.
I would say like not post marriage, but like as the marriage was like kind of like breaking down, like, all that work, maybe I could have broken and reset it. That's a really, really thin maybe, but like no shade. But it definitely makes me think about that and thinking about if we're with people, because this is true, I think, even of friendships, right? Like we are different people than when we met each other back then. So that's something that really actually stayed with me. And I just keep thinking about it. I keep thinking about what it means to potentially break something and reset it, and especially marriages, to become something different. So that's one of the things that stayed with me.
I mean, I will say that our friendship has done that.
Yeah, 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 for
You know
sure.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
many different times, and not in a negative
Not in a
or,
breaking, we're gonna throw that mess away type of break, because it's not broken and you throw it away type of broken.
but it's like in every time that we kind of evolve to the next who we are,
Yes. When we
either,
level up.
right, I know, I know.
Uh-huh.
Luckily, you've leveled up. Haha.
Ah!
And so have I.
Idiot.
But But each
Yeah,
time that there was this kind of breaking, and it's not even breaking the relationship,
I know.
but it's whatever's breaking within us
Yep.
that is changing the thing that we are.
Exactly. Yep.
And then either your friend and you have s-
Right.
come with me,
Exactly. Or your
you've come
partner,
with me,
right? Like, and that's the whole thing about it, right? Like in relationships, whether they're your romantic, intimate
right?
relationships or your friend, intimate relationships, it's an invitation. We're going to go back to that word to say, okay, you can meet me on this journey or not, right?
Or
Because that's
not.
the other thing I've thought
That's
about,
okay.
is that that's okay too, right? So the flip of what I'm naming is it's okay that I'm divorced and that we became two different people that needed to go on two different paths and journeys. It's just acknowledging that without harboring any of the and Marquita talked about this a little bit, like taking on victim or making someone a victim or a villain in that story. So, yeah.
I do want to, we're gonna take a short break. I do want to say something about paths and
Okay.
marriage when we get back.
All right, hold on to it.
So
You can
I
remember. You better write it down.
we will be back after this break.
Welcome back to that part. You can find us in all the places. We are 45 Lemons, www.45lemons.com. That's 4 and 5. Or if you don't find us at 4 and 5, it's all spelt out 45 Lemons. So now you are going to ask a question. Did you remember your question?
I do. No, I wasn't going to ask a question. I was going
Okay.
to make a statement, and
Okay.
it's something that stayed with me when I do this thing when I'm like about to embark on kind of big things that I ask people a lot of questions.
Hmm.
I did it with like when I was pregnant, if I saw people who had, kind of cool relationships or good relationships and strong relationships with their children,
Hmm.
especially their teenage children and their older children. I wanted to know what they did
Hmm.
for that to be the eventuality, And I got some really great responses, but I asked that question when that year I was engaged as well.
Yeah.
And the best answer, or the answer, I mean, it's the answer I kept. I don't know, maybe it was the best
Maybe it wasn't the
answer, but
best. It
it's
was the
the one
best answer for you.
correct. The one that stayed with me. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's the right
That's it.
answer,
That's the ticket. That's the
you know?
ticket.
But it was this woman who was probably in her 60s. She'd been married for about, I think, for 35 or 40 years or something like that. And I mean, I liked her. I don't even remember her name. I mean, it's kind of a shame, but I
How
don't,
good
or
was that
maybe not.
advice? No, I'm just joking.
I don't, right? I
Hey,
mean, if I saw her.
reason, season, lifetime. She came to you
Right.
for a reason, and here was the reason. So, what
Right.
did she
And
say
she
to
wasn't a friend. We were in Bible study together or
you? A reason.
something. It was a reason.
Mhm.
And so what she said was the mistake that people make when they're getting married is that they believe you have to be on the same path.
Mm,
And that when you cleave, right, then you're like together and you're joined, and then you move through life in this joined way on the same path.
mhm,
She said what she believes and how she had lived her marriage, her and her husband, was that they always understood they were on different paths.
mm,
And so it wasn't about that you're on the same path all the time. It is that you're actually walking your own path through life.
Hmm.
And at different points in your life, your paths would cross and you would walk very closely together. And sometimes your paths would go in other directions and you would walk. And hopefully, you're attempting to always walk in parallel, but
Right.
not on the same path.
Yeah.
And she's like, and if it really diverges and you go off into the Netherlands, then, that's when a marriage breaks apart. But if
Hmm.
you can bring it back together,
Hmm.
um, in all of those shifting paths, you're going to be fine. And it was really great advice because it took that pressure off. I
Yeah.
have to be with this person all the time. I have
Hmm.
to believe in everything that this person believes in. I
Hmm.
have to act in a way that is going to represent my spouse all the
Hmm.
time and made me allow myself to be myself in
Yeah.
each of those kind of evolving moments and
Yeah.
allow him to be himself and also, not listen to all the pressures of the outside world about it. Because
Yeah.
people would be like, I mean, this is a quick story, but we when we started dating and we were in separate cities almost
And for
most of our
those of you
dating
that
life.
do not know, Na was introduced to her husband by my ex-husband.
That's right.
So we have all of these kind of paths crossing,
That's
if
right.
you will. But yeah, so that's like kind of another kind of interesting
Another
connection that we
connection.
have. So they were in the same fraternity, went to some like schools in the same area, and Stefan was always like, "Hey, I know this perfect guy for her,
Yeah. And then
my
we met
fraternity
and he
brother."
was right.
Hmm.
And so, but so we, when we would be in the same place, we would like drive together. He'd pick me up, or we'd be in the same car when we got married. Same thing. We'd be going places the same. And although I like people, I don't want to be around people all the time.
Hmm.
And he's quiet and he loves being around people all the time. And so
Hmm.
we'd go to a party, and
Hmm.
at the party, I would be done. It's
Hmm.
like an hour I've seen the people,
Hmm.
unless I find someone I really connect to and we do a
Yeah.
small, just me and them. I was ready to go. And he'd want to be there till like 3 a.m. And I'm like, what am I doing here?
Mhm.
So we started driving separately. And
Mhm.
people would be like, ugh, you and your husband drive separately. And I was like, I mean, I don't like, what is the big deal? He wants to stay.
Mhm.
I
And I
want to
get
go.
it. Yeah.
He can stay because he doesn't have to leave
Yes.
because I'm leaving.
Right.
And I shouldn't have to stay
Yeah.
because he wants to stay.
Yeah.
So that was one of those, it's a different iteration of the path thing,
Yeah.
but it's just something I think is important for couples to kind of think about and acknowledge,
Yeah.
that you don't have to be the cookie cutter that is the perception, because there is
Yeah. Or like
actually
you said,
no
yeah,
cookie
there
cutter.
is none. Exactly what works for you and your partner. And I think the other part of it is some of the theme of Marquita, Darnice, and Jihan was all this thing about like either reimagining, but I also think there was so much of holding on to who you are, right? And
Mm,
I think that version or vision or example that you gave allows each people to still be a unit, but at the same time hold on to the things that are true about them, right? And it
right.
doesn't mean that you're not compromising at times. Those are not the things that we're
Sure. No,
discussing
that's
right
different.
now,
Yeah.
but it's just that how do you stay true to that? And I think that those are some things that really did resonate with me as we talked to the three of them. And it also connects so much to like the work versions of ourselves. I think it's just so
Mm,
interesting, right? Because we're having these conversations and we started this podcast as 45 Lemons, but all of it is so intricately, it's so intimately like connected.
yeah.
I think there are also these versions of ourselves that we don't allow ourselves to be at work, that can sometimes hinder. And I'm going to talk very specifically from the place of I've always done work that is, if you're going to give it a terminology, social impact, or it's about, justice and making sure that we're doing right by humans. And when you do that type of work, there's always the like, yes, be your full authentic self, but not too much, not too much,
Right.
right? Like just enough that we could tolerate, but don't question too much, things like that. And I'm coming into this space of time, or have been, even as we have started to work together, because some of even our coming together as 45 Lemons was in an attempt to be able to be ourselves where we were.
Right.
And
Right.
there's this similar thing, right? Like about how do you just stay true to who you are, right? And even in a partnership that is a working partnership, now and I are
Right.
not the same. We usually have the same outcome that we want, but sometimes we'll have to be like, wait, we just
So
literally
different.
said the same thing, but completely
Completely
different way to get
different.
there, right?
Right.
Like so different. And that has been really interesting to me as I think about each of the conversations we've had, but also I'm always thinking about what does this mean when it crosses over into your professional life, these things. And and grief especially. Like for some reason that one really made me think about the people that remain after someone leaves and the grief that they're going through and how organizations don't talk about that, right? Like they just
Yeah.
like just keep it
Oh,
moving. The
yeah.
next day we hopping on this Teams call
Right.
again.
Right.
And it
Right.
like as if this person wasn't even there. I've even been in situations where they don't even want to say the person's name. And I stopped doing that. I remember very specifically because it was probably I was definitely 2011s because I know where I was working when this happened, right? And we had this big layoff and we had these conversations and people were kind of using code for so they would say things like let's say you had come up with the leadership plan. Now, we used to always be
Yeah.
like, oh, when Nas came up
Not
with the leadership
leadership.
plan.
Right.
So they'll be like, well, when we were working on the leadership plan and the person that was in charge of that was
And you're
sharing
like,
these really great ideas, I'd be like, come
I
on,
mean,
y'all. We
nah.
can like literally say her name. Like it's not Voldemort up in here. Like we can literally say her
Ah,
name. So
oh
it's even
gosh.
those types of things. And so I've been thinking about that, like how we, because just how we handle all of it. So that was a far left tangent, but it's what it made me think about. Um, this is what I thought about, if I'm being honest.
Voldemort.
Voldemort. Isn't it so strange though? Have you ever
Yeah.
been in those situations where you know that they're trying so hard to explain the thing? All they have to do is say the person's name, and we
Right.
will all know what they're talking about. But
Right.
because either that person quit or that person was fired or the person was let go, they don't want to say their name. And that's
Right.
really
Or
bizarre.
that person did something that, they don't like. I mean, I do this all the time. I make people name the thing. I'm always like, they'll
I
be like, well,
know.
you know,
Who are we talking about
right. And also, why are people are saying
Who? Who's the
that I'm like,
people?
I'm
Who the
like, who's the
people?
people?
Who's
I
the
need
people? I need
names.
all their names
I
so that
need
I understand.
receipts. I'm
Receipts.
not going to go, recently I was speaking to somebody. I'm trying to like maintain some
Oh, who were you speaking
professional
to? No, I was just joking. No,
you
you don't
know,
have to say it. I'm just joking. I'm just
right. But but no, but I had to say that to them because they were like, oh, people at my company feel like this is toxic and it is a terrible environment. And I know people from that company, a lot of people from that who do not feel that way. Now
oh,
they do feel that this person may be the problem.
right.
Um, and so I was like, well, who are the they? Like, I need to know who the people are
Yeah,
because I can go and help address that, but you can't just be like
I know.
people,
Just like these blanket statements. And so,
blanket statements.
yeah, to bring that back around, if at all, it is really about the path thing that you said. How are you staying true to yourself in any of these iterations of you? And that can show up in all these different ways. And I think when we either go too far on being on someone else's path, we lose ourselves as
Right,
much as if we just go on our path and act like other people don't even matter while we're
right,
on that path. So I
right.
think there's like all these other places.
And that connects back to work again
Hmm.
because when maybe not everybody has a dream. Sometimes I do talk to
God bless them. Mhm.
sometimes people will say to me, no, like I really just want to work at this place and make the money and
Mhm.
leave. And
Yeah.
that's
Because
great.
maybe their dream has nothing to do with work.
It has nothing to do
You know
with
what I mean?
work.
Which is
Or they
beautiful
don't
for
have a
them.
dream, which is fine
Or they
too.
don't have a dream, which is fine too.
Which is fine too.
It is.
All of that, all of which we will happily accept. But if you do
Mhm.
actually have a dream, if we're talking about work and particular.
Hmm.
And then you get lost, which I think both of us talked about. Well, we've talked to each other about this. We'll
Yeah.
tell you all that, 45 Lemons became lost for a while
Yeah, it did.
because we were following somebody else's dream.
Yeah.
And
And because we like to do the most, we like to give 175%. We won't talk about where that all comes from and what the black women got to do, but we just like go so hard for the stuff that we're doing that if a
you then
client becomes,
lose
yeah. Hmm.
yourself
Yeah.
or the thing that you have the passion around.
Yeah.
And so the blessings sometimes come in ways that are more painful, but that means being laid off, by the way. Um, but then in ways that make you have to build. Okay, so we are up on our next break and we will be back on the other side.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Please check us out in all the places and send us emails. We really actually do love hearing from you. It's that part at 45lemons.com. So,
Okay. Oh yeah, go ahead. You were gonna
no, I was
say.
just gonna say, so we're gonna, how we're closing out these in-betweens are just with, we're calling them, I said rapid fire, not just previewed the questions. She's like, ain't nothing rapid about these questions. But we are literally just gonna ask each other some questions. One of the things that we want you to know is us. And so, um, I'm gonna start. My first question is, what is something you've changed your mind about in the last few years?
Oh, good gracious. Um, Girl, I don't know. What about you?
Damn, you can't do that. Okay, something that I've changed my mind about in the last few years. It's been longer than a few years, but it's dating younger men.
Okay, we're just gonna say that. Well, now ask me another question. There's the like, what's bringing you joy these days? And you can't say your children. I was gonna say it's not because they're not bringing me joy these days.
I love how Na's asking herself the question, "What's bringing you joy these days?" And no, you cannot say your children. Answer the question.
That's what the note said. You can't say your
I
children.
know, but you're asking yourself the question,
All
and now you're
right.
going to answer the question.
No, I think these are giving me joy these days. That's my answer. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What conversation are Black women having right now that more people should be paying attention to?
Ooh, so many. Um, I think Black women have always been talking about how we collect our collective liberation. Like our liberation is dependent on each other. And right now, the conversations that I'm digging into are the spaces that Black women are creating for ourselves, where we are using each other for business, where we are using each other. We're creating these small pockets of like, if I need a graphic designer, I'm going to go to this list of people to find. And I think this is going to be really important given the time that we're living in, that all people need to find the community around them and actually build and work with and pay each other to do this.
Right.
And I think it's also just around like mutual aid. Like the money that's going into the government is going to, this is me on my political soapbox, but going to fund things that we don't want it to fund. So then how do we circulate our money differently? So that's one of the things that I'll name.
Love it.
Um, what is one truth you know today that you had to learn the hard way?
That I really like being sexy. Because,
Say more, nah.
well, I mean, because okay, this harkens back to it was probably a few years ago. I can't remember how long, but I was like I don't know if I was trying to wear something where I didn't look sexy. And then you were like, I mean, forget it.
So
What are
whatever you're
you
gonna put on, it's
talking
gonna look
about? Like,
sexy.
whatever you put on is going to look sexy. And then in another iteration of that, you were like, it's also that you bring sexy energy, you know? Like, and I do. I am like flirty in not a, I don't think it's in a, like, I'm trying to, be with somebody intimately way, but like, I am flirty. I
Love it.
like talking to people and I like being, it's flirty, flirty
Mhm.
with men and with women, and not in a like sexual way. But I think I look at myself and I just have to accept, which is so different
You
than
tried to
I
hide
would
it.
have been saying at 18, 19, 20 into it. I did not look at myself and think I am sexy.
Mm,
And I don't care how many people would have said to me, you are. I just didn't see that. And I didn't think I just didn't think about it. And now I'm like, yeah, I put something on. I'm like, yeah, I'm sexy. Or on my hair, I look sexy today. My black star. Look how these are sexy, these black star. I mean, look,
I love it.
that's it.
Oh.
Okay. For you,
Hmm.
what are you no longer willing to carry?
And it's funny because this came up in Marquita's episode. I am no longer willing to carry that I have to solve everything and that I don't get to be soft and don't get to need people. And I'm just like done with that. I still don't know how to tell people exactly what I want. Me and my therapist, we're working on that, but I'm also just like done. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why do I have to and I think there is this also, it's similar, it, it's not similar maybe, but embracing both my masculine and feminine energy at equally. And I do believe that in some ways it is what I needed to survive as a young person going through the things that I needed required me to be a little bit harder and a little bit stronger and a little bit more steeled against the
Hmm.
world. And I'm just not doing that anymore.
I love it. I mean, I'm going to answer that, then we're going to be done because because we gotta go. I have a hair appointment. I'm gonna look different the next time you see me. I'm running late. But she did tell me in true fashion for any quality hairstylist is that she might be doing somebody's hair when I show up. So um I'm not gonna rush. She was like, don't rush because you may have to
You
wait.
may have to wait.
And she knows I don't like to wait. So I think I I have probably mentioned a few times that I have rheumatoid arthritis,
Mhm.
but we haven't really talked about it. And we need to have an episode
We do.
also where we talk about the things that we carry and how they end up being carried in our bodies.
Mhm.
And so we will talk about that. But it was like a little bit of an invitation. If we go back all the way to the top, it was an invitation for me to say, I can't.
Mhm.
I would not. I sent you the text right before this. I was like, I'm stressed. I'm like, it's like 6:00 something, we're not quite ready. I was doing stuff at the end. I had meetings um and I was like, I am stressed. And that's not something
Yeah.
I would have shared. I just would have dealt with it
Yeah.
and, done whatever I need to do to move forward. So I am not willing to carry um like kind of what I'm feeling and how it is not like I am vulnerable
Yeah.
in those moments. So
Love it.
that's it.
Well,
Okay, I've got to get to my hair appointment
that's it for this episode. This edition, this
in between.
in between that part. And so we'll be back with a guest next time. Thanks for sitting with us in the middle of it all.
That's that part. Have a great
Next
rest of your day.
time.
Bye.
Bye.